the ancient cultures realized we were going to get dumb, and they left us clues to figure stuff out. Just like I think the same thing of the monuments of Mars, of Richard's book about the monuments of Mars. They lined things up mathematically because they knew when we found it we'd be pretty dumb, and they wanted to help us. So
yeah, and I think that's something that that they don't teach anymore. It's called critical thinking skills.
Yes.
That allows you to go beyond your IQ in a sense, and get out of the intellect and get into more of the conceptual things. And they considered that at some point just as much value as whether you get an A, B, C, or D, or E, or F rather, on your report card, right? I mean that's the units of measurements that we use, but those units of measurements are only as good, I guess, as if you apply them in the fields in which the box is contained. You're in the same box. So.
Right, absolutely. Right.
Yeah. So, I want to say to people, because you first, right off from the very get-go, you just capture everyone's attention in this book. You wish you did mine. I guess I can't say that for everyone. I'm not speaking for everyone. But what I found is that because of the physics and the concepts that you're dealing with, and you get into parts of the physics and the astronomy and the astrology and the movement of the solar system, how it was born. Already I can hear people going, well, that just doesn't sound exciting at all. Right?
Right.
Way beyond that, because it's like when you're reading it, it's like listening to you talk.
Okay, cool.
So very much you comes out in this book as far as the way things are worded and how you present things. So for me, the book was really fascinating in the way that you wrote it, because it is an easy read. And I don't mean easy that it's not challenging to you to think about, but it's not like you have to go, oh, well, he's referencing that, and I have to go read 16 books on, quantum physics in order to understand this paragraph here, right?
Well, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I honestly wanted. I thought to myself, I know this book is still going to be more technical than I want to be in my career. I want to become less technical in how I talk about things, but you got to kind of have that for background. But I thought to myself, I want 25-year-old girls to be able to read this book, and so when I had a word, I'm like, really, would a 25-year-old girl really know what that word means, or should I say it a different way? And so I appreciate that feedback, because I really tried to make it an easy book to read and not overly technical the way Dark Mission could be. Because I'm not arguing with people here. I'm just saying, look, this is the way it is, and this is what's going to happen, and this is what you can do about it. So take my message or leave it.
So one of the last few questions here is the exploded planet hypothesis.
Right.
Can you talk about that for just a second?
Yeah, that has to do with how the solar system was really formed, and this is important because the planets drive the physics. In other words, the tail wags the dog. The sun and its energy output, and consequently the life energy that exists in this solar system that enables us to live, is all controlled by the planets themselves. And what appears to have happened is that at least two planets in the solar system don't exist anymore. They appear to have blown up. And if you look at the planet Mars, it has undeniable signatures of having been blasted by something very large and very close, which was the planet that it was orbiting. I think that my theory is that there were once 3 habitable planets in the solar system, 3 planets that could support life as we know it today. There was Venus, there was Mars, which was in orbit around another large planet, and there was the Earth. So you had an inner Earth, an outer Earth, and a middle Earth, as I like to describe it, and we're now the only one left. So the life that's here is very precious, and we shouldn't take our existence for granted, and we shouldn't take it lightly, and so that's why this is important for people to understand. So the exploded planet hypothesis basically says that there should be a planet. Every planet should be about twice as far from the previous planet, from the sun, as the previous planet. So, in other words, Venus is twice as far from the sun as Mercury, and Earth is twice as far from the sun as Venus is, and so on and so forth. And that works great, but then you have this gap where the asteroid belt is between Mars and Jupiter, and you have the fact that Mars appears to be pretty battered and beaten up by a fairly recent event, and its orbit is really elliptical. It's not circular, and that is probably caused by the fact that it was basically blasted out of the orbit it was in when this other planet exploded. Now, as to what caused the planets to explode, there are some conventional theories for what could cause planets to explode, but I have my own, and they're pretty quirky and pretty weird. I'm not sure I want to get into them tonight, to be honest.
You don't have to.
Look, a planet can either explode because of some natural cause or a collision, or it can explode because somebody blew it up, and those are the two choices.
Right.
So, and I'm going to leave it to everybody's spirit guides and so forth to let them, conclude what it is, which one of those fits to these two planets.
So let's get back to that whole thing about when we were talking about how everything is orbiting and it's all out of sync, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously, when we're looking at the Mayan calendar, they already knew that the planets were out of sync,
right?
Because these events happen, how many millions, billions of years ago? We don't know, right?
Yeah, my guesstimate is about 65 million years ago. Yeah. The events that killed the dinosaurs were from the destruction of Planet 5 that Mars used to orbit. That's my thought.
Yeah, and I don't. When I was reading that, I didn't think that probably was far-fetched at all. I don't remember it. I wasn't personally there at that time, so I'm not sure either. So,
Yeah.
Give or take a few years, right?
Right, exactly.
But, when we look at that, and we look at the Mayan calendar, and we look at all of what they're saying, it just kind of really cements a lot of the prophecies, so to speak, of some of the things that they see as potentials happening. So what I think would be good is, because you've talked a lot about the Mayans, you talk a little bit in your book about the Hopis and somebody else about some of the works that you've done. So maybe if you could leave us here, because I think we've got, about 15 minutes? No, 10 minutes. Oh, my goodness. Oh, 12 minutes. See, I can't count. He's holding fingers, and that's what my education did for me, Mike. Anyway, I kind of would like for you maybe to go in a little bit into the prophecies and what they could be saying.
Okay, well, I cover in the choice. I cover a little bit about the Mayan prophecies and the Hopi prophecies, and the interesting ones. The Mayan ones are pretty general and pretty interesting. They talk about the period around 2012, and they talk about how there's going to be the usual droughts and plagues and all these kinds of things, and the Hall of Mirrors and stuff. But to me, the really fascinating ones are the Hopi. And what they tell a story of is that they say that there have been 3 previous worlds of man, and they've each been destroyed by some global cataclysm, some cyclical global cataclysm, and it's because they turned away from their spiritual minds, their spiritual bodies, and became purely intellect and very selfish and very materialistic. And there is a rock on Second Mesa in Arizona, I believe, which is on the Hopi Holy Lands. And on it is etched the history of what the Hopi say is the history of man. And it shows Great Spirit, and it shows 2 timelines, two timelines. The one above is a straight line, and there are these 3 beings on there, which are supposed to represent the 3 previous worlds of man. And their heads are separated from their bodies. They're the 2-hearted people. They were not, their mind and their spirit were not connected. Mm. And the 4th figure is at the front. He's slightly separated from the other 3, and this is the current world that we live in. And on his path, it's the path of technology and intellect and spiritlessness. And at the end of that path, there is a line that goes straight down to the lower path. And the lower path is nature and harmony and living in co-creation with God and living in connection to spirit. And beyond that last point there, that vertical line that goes straight down, above on the path of intellect is chaos. There is a jagged line that eventually drops off, meaning that world just ceases to be. And the line below that, there's corn and food and abundance and a small figure, basically walking off into the sunset singing Kumbaya, as I said earlier. So those are the choices. But what it says is that we are coming up to this last choice. And all of these prophecies, whether they're the Hopi prophecies, whether they're the Mayan prophecies, whether they're the Yugas, they all say that we have a choice at the end. And we can still choose to make our world, a better one that's more in harmony and more aligned with the natural cycles and really more in tune with who we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to be this intellectual and this heartless. We're not supposed to be this selfish. We're not supposed to be so focused on material wealth and on pleasures of the flesh, I guess you'd say.
No,
God, I sound like a preacher.
No,
but, we're not supposed to be this focused on it. We're supposed to be more spiritual. That doesn't mean I want to be a monk. I don't. If I make good money on this book, I'm buying a Porsche. I'm just going to be honest with you. But we are supposed to be more in tune than we are, and what we have been especially in the 20th century here. And they all say that we're going to have to, all these prophecies say that we're going to have to make a choice here at the end of time. And what we choose is going to dictate how everything comes out for the next period of man.
Yeah. I think that little rock art there is fabulous information right there about the timelines.
Yeah.
Because many people are actually experiencing that because of the energies. Speaking of energies, we do have another question that popped in here. Is there any significance to tomorrow, 10-10-10?
Maybe, and in the sense that I think that these, I'm not a numerologist. I have a really good numerologist that I really like.
I always call mine up and go, hey, what's this mean?
What does this mean? But, I don't know that there is, but hey, you know what? Let's take the opportunity to set some intention tomorrow. Let's assume that there's some resonance. And there almost has to be. There almost has to be some resonance with 10 a.m. on 10-10-10. There absolutely has to be some resonance. So I'm going to take some time at that moment to set my intention, not just for myself and for the people around me, but for the entire world. One of the taglines for this book is, you know the secret, now make the choice. And the secret is great if all you want, is a big house, a fast car, and a hot girlfriend. But if you want something more for yourself and for your family, and you want love for them, and you want abundance, and you want the world to be a better place, then you need to choose that. And so I would say it can't possibly hurt to take some time at that moment and send out maybe just love. That one guy who wrote earlier, I forget his name, but was talking about the fear he has for people that aren't in his life that aren't getting it. Well, take some time tomorrow at 10 a.m. on 10-10-10 and send them some love, because they're going to need it as we all do.
Well, I felt such significance for the date and of it that I have scheduled a conference for tomorrow, and it really is about getting past the conspiracy theory information, the death, doom, and destruction, and really focusing on consciousness and awareness and
right.
Because
the more we focus on that, the more likely it is that's what we're going to get.
And if we wanted to do that on 10/21 of 10, that's fine too. Whatever day, you can make every day significant, in my opinion. Every day is significant. As a matter of fact,
but I honestly, to answer the question directly, I do not honestly know of any alignments of the planets that I would consider to be especially significant about that at that moment.
Yeah. So we have less than 5 minutes, so what I would love for you to do is to wrap up just a little bit, and then please let everyone know again how to get your book. I know you've got some appearances coming up. I know there's some things that you're going to be doing. So if people want to follow up and follow you and get to where you're at and how they can find you and all that good stuff, if you will just do that for the audience, that'd be fantastic. This has just been beautiful, Mike. Really, it has been. It's just been a treasure to have you here.
Well, and thank you for having me, Rebecca. And it's great to do a really, really good interview with somebody that really, I vibe with. So I appreciate that.